Hello everyone and welcome to lesson 7.4. Here's your objective. I will be able to solve and write multiplication equations just like 7.3, which was solve and write subtraction equations, and 7.2, solve and write addition equations. We're going to be doing the same thing. We want to get the variable all by itself. So if we're going to be multiplying with a variable, to get it by itself, we have to divide. Alright, you'll see what I mean in a second, but the key point again is get the variable by itself by doing the inverse. Alright, right here we have 2x equals 10. The variable is x. I want to get it by itself. Okay, so 2x is really 2 times x. To get rid of the 2, I'm going to need to divide by 2. So 2x is really 2 times x, like I said. I don't know why I'm repeating myself, but to get rid of it, I'm going to divide by 2. And remember, a fraction like 1/2 is the same thing as saying 1 divided by 2. I want you guys to divide by 2 like that. I don't want you to put 2 divided by 2 over there. Alright? I want you to make it like a fraction division problem. So, if I divide 2 by 2, they just cancel out. X is going to be left all by itself. But since this is an equation, I have to keep it balanced. Whatever I do on my left, I must do on my, you said it, the right. Good job. I heard all of you out there. 10 divided by 2 equals 5. So I'm left with x equals 5. And what can I do to check? Yes, you're right. You said I could plug it in. I heard you. Yes, you could plug it in. 2 times 5 equals 10. Now, yes, this is a simple problem, and you could have seen right away what the answer is going to be, but it's important to know the method for when the problems do get harder, and some of them get harder during this video. All right, moving on. 3x equals 6. Now, I know you're already telling yourself 3 times 2 equals 6, but I want to give you another example. All right, walk me through it. What's first? Yes. That's 3 times 3, I must divide by 3. You guys are so smart. And whatever I do to the left side, I do the right. Alright, so what's 3 divided by 3? It's just 1. So I'm left with 1x, which is just x. So that's what it means to cancel out. I'm left with just x. And 6 divided by 3 is 2. So I'm left with x equals 2. Bada bing, bada boom, check it out. 3 times 2 does equal 6. Alright, I think we have a couple of harder examples here. Harder because they involve past skills like decimals. Alright, 6 and 5/10 a equals 32 and 5/10. Alright, well, this is 6 and 5/10 times a. I have to get rid of that, so I'm going to divide by 6 and 5/10 on both sides. Alright. Cancels out. You said it. Now I have to do some division involving decimals. Can't really see that. Can you see it now? There it is. Okay, so this is 32 and a half divided by 6 and a half. So I'm going to write 32 and a half divided by 6 and a half. All right, hopefully you remember this from Unit 1. Let me erase this so it's out of the way here. All right, when I have a decimal here, we had to swoop it, there it is. So I'm going to swoop this once and swoop this once. So I'm left with 65 going into 325. All right, well, I know that 6 times 5 equals 30. So I'm going to start with 5 as my guess. I'm going to see. So I'm going to write up here 65 times 5. 5 times 5 is 25. Okay. 5 times 6 is 30, plus 2 more equals 32. So it goes in exactly, because 65 does not go into 3. 65 does not go into 32. But 65 does go into 325 exactly 5 times. 5 times 65 is 325. I'm left with 0 remainder. So 32 and a half divided by 6 and a half equals 5. A equals 5. Now what I could do is I could plug this into my calculator and check, or I could do it all out and check myself and see that it does work. Alright, so it's not like the process of dividing both sides by the same number is harder, but you have a harder division problem when you're dealing with decimals. So you got to remember that old stuff. We can't forget it because Mr. Murphy's a great teacher, so you should never forget it. Okay, here we go. Our last example is going to be our hardest one because we have multiple steps here. I have 1 2/5, which is a mixed number. 1 2/5 times x equals 7. So you're saying to yourself, how do I divide by 1 2/5? Well, here's the thing. We don't want to deal with mixed numbers. We want to turn this into an improper fraction. Repeat that. Thank you. All right, so 5 times 1 is 5, plus 2 equals 7. So I'm left with 7 over 5x equals 7. Now you're saying, how do I divide 7/5 by 7/5? Well, this is the confusing part. Our whole purpose is to get x by itself. So let me give you a little example up here. Let's say, how do I turn 2/5 into 1? Well, you multiply 2/5 by its inverse. So 2/5 times 5/2 equals 10 over 10, 10/10, which equals 1. All right, so we need to turn 7/5 into 1. So it would be 1x. So instead of dividing them, I'm going to actually multiply both sides by the inverse of 7/5. What's the inverse of 7/5? Well, it's 5/7. All right. So I'm also going to multiply 7 by the same thing times 5/7. On this side, I'm going to put it over 1. Let's do this side first. 5 times 7 equals 35. 7 times 5 equals 35. So 35 over 35 is basically just 1. I'm left with 1x. You could even cross multiply or whatever, but these cancel out. So you're left with just x on this side. Now, I have to multiply my 7 by my 5 over 7. Same thing on both sides because it's equation. 7 times 5 is 35. 1 times 7 is 7. So x equals 35 over 7, but we could reduce that, we could simplify it. 7 goes into 35 5 times. 7 goes into itself once. So the answer is 5 over 1, which is simply just 5. So if I were to take out my calculator and multiply 1 2/5, which is what is a decimal? All right, remember that? That would be 40.4. It would be 4 tenths. So 1.4 times 5 will equal 7. You could check that out on your own. I know probably all of you will. Do 1.4 times 5, and it should come out to be 7. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. It's your job to check me right now. If I'm wrong, you can laugh at me tomorrow. Okay, so I'm giving you 3 examples to do for homework. First one will be very easy. 4c equals 20. Now you already probably know the answer because you know 4 times 5 equals 20. Great, good for you. But you have to actually show me the work. All right, divide both sides by 4, cancel them out, show the work for that one. Next one gets a little bit harder. We're dealing with decimals. You know what to do. And the last one is from the last example, a mixed number. Don't forget to turn 3.5 into an improper fraction first, which would be 2 times 3 plus 1 over 2, which is 7 over 2. Multiply that by the inverse, which is 2 over 7. It'll cancel it out. Then you multiply 28 times 2 over 7. I basically did the hard one for you. So there's no excuse to get this one wrong. At least set it up the correct way. All right? I'll see you when I see you, and good luck.